Welcome to Outback Outdoors. Make sure you like, subscribe, and click the alert to stay up to date on all our new videos.
The one on the right's definitely a buck.
Wonder if all three of those are.
I'm betting all three are bucks.
So we are here in Nebraska. I'm sitting with Adam Wells, Jake Shaw, Marketing Director of Mountain Ops.
Yep.
And Garrett Drack. And Jake, this is your first time hunting Nebraska, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. This is my first time actually hunting out of state. I'm actually pretty new to hunting big game in general.
Oh, that's a good buck in the back.
Yep.
Sloane Brown with Yeti, great guy. We'll get him on here in the next podcast. Garrett, Adam, and you were basically a team. Adam, take us through that first morning, which was yesterday morning.
You know, I spotted some bucks coming out of some standing corn.
We tried to get in on them, and I just wanted to get into the next draw because if they were going to the corn, maybe I could cut them off. And I just told him, I said, let's just wait right here. Let's just sit down and just see if they come.
We had sat down for 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, and I have my headphones on, I just hear Jake, oh, there they are. I mean, it was that quick. Like, it never happens like that. It was crazy.
Yeah.
They walked right up the draw. Like Jake said, we were trying to get in front of them, and he picked the spot perfectly.
That's a little high. Oh. That was perfect. Like perfect. I just wish I would have made a perfect shot. Talk about buck fever.
So Sloane, introduce yourself.
So I'm Sloane Brown. I'm the hunting specialist at Yeti. It's the coolest job in the world. So we spotted this buck on the first morning. He was on the wheat field. We saw him again this morning, and he kind of fed across the field, and the field's kind of got a little hump in the middle of it. So we lost sight of him when he crossed over that hump.
Yeah, I would be happy to shoot that buck.
And so we made a game plan to kind of sneak around a coulee that paralleled the one that we thought he was in.
When the fire's right, they're gone and turn it into gold.
Thank God Lane was leading the charge, because we just started up the very first pitch, and the buck I ended up shooting shook his head, and Lane saw him.
And in the moonlight, you don't like being left alone.
So he was in a spot where the wind was perfect right in our faces, and we kind of made a game plan. Lane decided to go up and around and get a different camera angle, and he was tucked in between a cedar tree and basically a cliff wall. I had to get higher, so I kept going uphill, and as I was going uphill, I was getting closer and closer, and I was ranging the tree that I knew he was tucked up against. Yeah, so I just kept sneaking up, I was 17 yards, and I was thinking to myself, I can't believe I'm this close. That's the closest I've ever been to a living, breathing deer, I think. I had him at 7 yards to the tree, so meaning he was probably 5.5 yards from me.
So can you see the top of his antlers the whole time?
When I got to 7 yards,
okay,
I could see the top of his antlers, finally. The wind was perfect, right into my face, and Lane says, throw a rock. There's no rocks around. So I find a little patch of dirt, and it's luckily it had snowed a couple days ago, so it was wet enough to ball up in my hand. Finally, I tossed it past him, and I saw his antlers move, and so I went to full draw, immediately after I tossed it. Boom, toss, and then full draw. And he stood up, and I let her rip. And he was quartered away really hard. And I hit him back, and I was afraid, right after the shot, I was afraid it was too far back, but he was angled pretty hard.
It was perfect.
When we looked at him, it was
like you nicked the heart.
Literally perfect, because it came out the opposite side in the front.
Right at the bottom of the sternum.
Right. Bottom sternum.
He was quartered away really hard.
Okay. Dude.
And so that arrow went in like right in front of the rump.
Okay.
And it's got to be through his lungs, but it didn't.
He just got his tongue out. He was moving slow. He went right over the ridge there.
Yeah. Dude, that was so sick. He's a good buck too.
Dude, that's a great buck.
I had him bedded at 6 yards right here, and all I could see was the top of his antlers. And so I was having to reach down and pick up clay and toss it down. I tossed it down, he stood up, and he was probably at 7 or 8 yards, quartered away really hard. And I took the shot, hit him back, but I think that's where I needed to put it. I can see the fletching's barely sticking out, so hopefully we can get eyes on him. This is pretty open country, so we should be able to.
We crest over a hill and glass a little bit, and then we see Lane across from us. And he walks across, and we meet up with him, and he goes, dude, that's a lot of country. And I'm like, I look over, and I'm like, that is a lot of country. This is gonna be tough. And he goes, good thing he's right there. And I'm like, oh.
That is so mean, Lane.
Yeah, I said good thing he's dead right there.
That's a lot of country, dude. That's a lot of country.
And it's only been like 20 minutes.
It's a good thing he's dead right there.
Shut up. Is he really?
That's dirty.
Show me where he is.
Give me a couple finger snaps. Set it. Roll it.
One of the first things to consider on an arrow build is how heavy you want to go. You can go for a super light arrow where it's 6.4 grains per inch at a 350 spine, or you can go as heavy as 12.7 grains per inch on a 350 spine. It's really going to come down to what kind of hunting you're going to be doing and what you want out of your arrow. A lighter arrow is going to be a lot faster, but you might be sacrificing a little bit of durability. A heavier arrow is going to be slower, but generally it's going to be more durable and have more kinetic energy. If I'm going to be hunting something like antelope on the open plains, I'm going to be wanting a faster arrow, so I'm going to go lighter. A lighter arrow is going to be affected by the wind more than a heavy arrow, so that's something to consider when you're picking out your arrows. If I'm going to be hunting something that's bigger with a thicker hide and I need more kinetic energy, like on moose or bears, I'm going to be going for a heavier arrow. A heavier arrow is going to be less affected by the wind than a lighter arrow, so that's something you have to consider as well.
Throw up a prayer for me too, won't you, David? It seems that our numbers have started to fall. If our missions were made for the will of the holy, surely his will says this mission won't fall.
Holy.
Dude, that is a toad.
Oh, man. Oh. Wow.
This is your first mule deer.
First mule deer. I'm screwed forever, dude. Oh my God. That was the coolest stalk I've ever done and probably will ever do.
Dude, that is a...
I couldn't be happier, dude.
That's a bomber buck, dude.
Yeah.
That's a bomber buck. I love it. I love it. Yes.
Dude, 10 out of 10 on like the camaraderie of this trip. I'm so glad I went down with you two today. I love Trev, but like you guys are my peoples.
I had a good day.
Every man's fight starts with believing. Believe that the lives that we lose here today will send out a ripple to Texans and many. Believe that
Look at his freaking, look at how tall that back tine is. Today's a perfect wind day.
It was windy enough, yeah.
Just windy enough, but you're still pretty accurate on your shooting.
Yep.
And you're able to close that distance.
Maybe his will says this mission must fall. Throw up a prayer for me too, won't you, David? It seems that our numbers started to fall. I thought missions were made for the will of the holy. But maybe his will says this mission must fall.
I've never experienced anything like that.
This Nebraska, western Nebraska spot and stalk, I mean, it's some of my most favorite.
The terrain is so conducive for, like, there's so many nooks and crannies for them to hide in. There's the deer numbers are there. It's easy terrain to move around in.
See that tree?
They walk down that fence line from the pivot.
Patsy Cline sang like a sparrow to heal our fights as Parliament smoke would come.
I'll have to come down that other side of that ridge. And there's that good cow trail. I can be pretty quiet on that cow trail. Thanks, man. Thanks. My guess is he got a whiff of us. And I wasn't gonna just fling an arrow. He's only 70 yards, but I'm just not gonna take that shot.
And he was at the same
So he got up and
I think. So he got up and came around.
Oh,
and he was up
I was expecting to be right under me still.
He was right above me.
I'll hold you close, hope for the best, darling, when those trumpets sound.
Beautiful morning. This is going to be the windiest day we've had so far, and we've got some deer spotted. They are probably 3/4 of a mile from where we're at. And we're going to give them a little time to get settled in before we even try and move closer.
Hope for the best, darling, with those
They saw us.
I just started heading back up towards where I was, and I'm like, I'm just going to go to the next draw to the south where those bucks just bailed into, and just glass as I go up the fence line back to my truck. It was the craziest thing. I get to the corner of that field and just barely peek over just to see what I can see, and my binoculars, I lifted them up and I caught his tines. And
Wow.
It was the craziest thing ever.
Bet big and lost the hand. We pressed on.
Well, let's make sure we have a good plan here. Because down this draw, the bottom come up over the top.
So we backed out. You and I backed out and went around. Me and my plan was to sit there and just kind of navigate for you. And we looked around, and there was 3 does and another even better buck.
I came around that and I had to drop like quick because that buck, I could see him. He was higher.
Right.
He could have seen me. So I just dropped down. I was like, how am I going to get around this? There's not enough cover. I was kind of pinned and just trying to think.
So I came over and I almost left my bow with Garrett, but I thought, I'm just going to take my bow. You were concerned with the wind, but we had such a good wind. And one thing I've learned, when you have a stiff wind and you're on the top of a ridge, your wind doesn't drop off. If you're on the top, it's going to keep blowing. I felt pretty confident that we needed to drop right over on top of those bucks. And your concern was, well, then our wind's going to go right to those does.
Yeah, because of where they were.
Right. And I didn't care. We got to a position, and then you and I just started creeping down. And then we could see the tines on
the top one.
Yeah, the top one. And then we knew, because there's 2 cedars in there, and we knew that other buck was bedded in the middle of those. So now there's 2 of us. We're like loaded, and we're inching down there, and we're getting a little further apart because I'm going to where if I'm going to have a shot at that upper buck, I need to be, and you're going to where you think you need to be to get a shot at the lower buck. And in hindsight, you should have been right next to me. And then the lower buck stood up.
If I creeped any more forward, which I would have had to be able to even see the tines of that buck that I was after, the top buck would have seen me and he would have busted. And so I was stuck where I was without screwing the whole thing up.
So what I was hoping he would do is they'll move and give you a different angle. And I was just needing something just so I could feel I could get drawn. Finally, he did that. And so I drew and stood up. So he must have caught me coming to full draw standing up. And that's when he started to booger. So I just swung straight over to where the top buck was. And he stood up and he was just about to go. And that's when I, put it right in front of the shoulder. He was quartering to me just a hair, but he's 18 yards and the canyon explodes.
Can you believe that worked?
Oh, look at him.
I come to help Jake the snake on his stalk, and we end up splitting up. We almost doubled.
Good thing is that my arrow flew true and the buck bailed out of there and didn't
make it 70 yards.
And he was done. And
it was a great shot.
It turned out pretty awesome, especially to share it with you. And to share that whole, we were right there together.
And now I understand why that wind is your best friend.
We'll be right back at it, moving on through the night. And I'm just another man. I press on the best I can. Press on, yelling, oh.
Congrats, Trev, and thank you for the opportunity of being here. It's one that I'll never forget, like you were talking about. It's a memory that I'll always treasure, and it's been a great experience.
Thanks for watching Outback Outdoors. We encourage you to comment below, and as always, like, subscribe, and click the alert to stay up to date on all our new videos.